Hello.
How are you?
Good.
I'm Dominique Wynne. I'm an art director at BBDO New York.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I was really excited after watching you speak. Like, your mind is just so incredible.
That's so sweet.
So I'm really excited to get a chance to interview you. One of the things that I noticed when you were showing all of your work is that a lot of your work pulls from surrealism. And I was wondering who your favorite directors and photographers were. I know that you said that you pull a lot from like the mundane, but also I wanted to know who those people were, and if you have any local photographers or directors in DC or when you were in Hong Kong, like who those people were.
My favorite photographer of all time is Irving Penn. I think he's incredible, the way he captures people. You know, when you look at a piece of photograph, there's just a lot of soul into it. You know, I mean, I think portrait photographer, it's like someone like Irving Penn, who's like a master of, you know, he can shoot anything. He can shoot still life, and the still life has soul, you know, and I don't know how he does it. And then like all the people, you can kind of feel, like you look at a still photography and you can feel that person. You feel like you get to know that person. And he's like one of my favorite photographers of all time. I work a lot and collaborate a lot with Dean Alexander, who is his director, who shot Hong Kong Ballet with me, and we have been friends and, you know, collaborator for almost over 7 years. And for me, it's very important to find partners or collaborator that understand your vision, you know, because sometimes you can hire the coolest, best photographer or director out there, but then when the vision is not aligned, that when it's become a problem. Because, you know, as agency creative director, we are the one that come up with a concept. We know the clients, you know, we know the look and feel, the vibe that it has to be. So working with, sometimes, you know, the best photographer might not be good for the project. So you need to hire someone who wanting to get your vision to come to life. And that person can be, you know, I mean, that's why we look at 2-3 different photographers when we have a jobs. And I do a lot of talking, meanings like, you know, briefing, explain the feelings of how I want things to feel, and sometimes very abstract. Sometimes we listen to music. You know, sometimes we smell the scents, because you know, certain thing is really abstract and you can't explain it. So as a creative director on a project, you must be a good communicator.
And how do you get clients who might not be ready to be pushed outside of their comfort zone? How do you get them? Just go ahead. Go ahead. So just go ahead, because we're holding on the door. Go ahead. How do you get clients who aren't ready to be pushed outside of their comfort zone visually and creatively to get where you want them to be?
So how do I push the clients? I don't know. Sometimes the client, you know, come to Design Army and they were like, oh, we love this campaign. We want something like that. And for me, there is nothing worse than repeat the past project, you know, and usually the client can maybe like something like this, and well, we're going to come up with something else new. And that something else new usually not the most comfortable thing for the client, because they question, you know, will this be too much for their audience, or is this going to work, you know, within 6 months from now? But a lot of time with a piece of design that we do, we, you know, it's 6 months out, or if it's the branding project, it's 12 months out. So we almost design the future, right? So you have to be able to predict the future. And a lot of it has to do with how you sell the work to the client. With passion, you have to be passionate about your work. You have to be confident and have data to back up, because you can't just make stuff up. Yes, here's the dream, that is what it should be, but here's the data to back up. However, data can only inform you. Sometimes a lot of clients or agency spend so much time on like data analysis. I think it's great. But you are designed for humans, so that emotional response, or that's the thing that trigger you or your friends or whoever the audience is, that it's the gut feeling that someone must have as a creative director. And a lot of times it's convincing client. Yeah. Like how do you feel about this piece? Right. Yes, we can tone it down if that's too much, you're not comfortable. But are you sure about that? Are you sure about that decision? Yeah. We can tone it down, but based on my professional experience, that's my line. Based on my professional experience, we can certainly turn it down. But it's up to you. But if I'm in your seat, I would go for it and give them confidence to go for it.
How were you able to come into your voice as a creative director? Because one of the things that you said during your presentation, when you were making the blues and the reds and even the yellows in the color of the Hong Kong ballet, saying no, this is 90s yellow. I'm looking for future yellow. Yes. And as an art director, I know what you mean by that, because it's so particular. Yeah. But how have you been able to over your career come into your voice and be able to explain that?
I think it has to do with experience, and it has to do with confidence that when something doesn't feel right. I think every creative has their own vision, of what the cut, of the movie should be, or what's the sound that matching this picture, what's the color that needs to be done in color grade. And I think a lot of times this is that persistent, that is not quite right. It's got to be more neon yellow rather than the 80 yellow. And you have to be able to explain that to the vendor, to collaborator. And I think it's take experience. And as an art director, you always have to keep your eyes open and be visual fluent in terms of what's in, what's new, what's next, what's now, what's not, what's so last year. That's our job, to be current in terms of trends. And when it's come to art direction, it's a lot of knowing what's there, knowing what might be, and it's about prediction. Right. Prediction to the future. And I think it's come with experience and a lot of study and a lot of observation.
Another thing that you had mentioned was being inspired by the mundane. And I want to know, what is the most mundane thing you've been inspired by, and what was the idea that came out of it?
I don't know. It's just, I think it's, travel is, give me the biggest inspiration, and I love go to a different city, right? And just kind of sit there and people watching. I think there's a lot, you don't necessarily have to go to Museum of Modern Arts, every day. I think just by going to the Central Park and sit there, you start noticing things, and old guys, feeding his potato chips to pigeon. It's a story by itself, right? And I think a lot of time I'm just really I'm a keen observer. I looking at everything. Like you say, when I go travel, I take 20,000 photos for 2 weeks. Visual obsessed. I think it's a good practice to do.
I just have one more question,
Yeah.
which is,
I don't think I answered that question at all, by the way. Cut that out.
like when you were getting your start and when you were a young creative, what is a disappointment that you remember about like a project or something like that, and how did you overcome it and make the work great?
I don't know. I usually don't regret things in the past. You know, I always looking forward. When I was younger, maybe, you know, I wish that my design skill is better. I wish my typography is better. It's like, wow, look at that. You know, creative director was able to come up with something so stunning. One day I want to grow up and be like that. And the only way to do it is to do it. You know, you got to work hard. You got to work on the skills at all time. I mean, that's the only way. I mean, I think I'm where I am today because I make a point to work harder than anyone else. And I'm still a student. You know, at this point, I'm going to keep learning and get better. You know, I think when it's very dangerous to think that you are at the very top, right? So this is the mountain. If you feel like you are at the very top, the only way is down. So for me, I'm always like, you know, 20 years in business, I'm still here, and I want to keep getting better and climbing up and learn something that I have never done before. I was a trained graphic designer. I have never done movie. You know, I didn't work at ad agency, but then I want to do movie. I want to do film. And, you know, with my editorial and photography background, tell the story through visual. You know, I told myself I can do this. I can do movie, you know, and I can storyboard things out in motion. I know exactly what I want. And I think that's how we create our own design army vibe. You know, that is kind of like distinctive, that unlike a lot of other agency, they just have its own something that's different because you create it from within. And I think being naive is a positive thing. You know, like, I don't know how to do it, but we'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And have that determination to get from point A to point B. It's very important.
Thank you.